to East County Sports. It's our Friday night football review. And of course, we have Adam Paul of EC Preps joining us. And Adam, a shortened week of games, but some busy results and a look ahead as we get ready for league play next week. I'll be interested to see what you have to say about those games. But we're going to start right at the top of the charts, I think, this week and get right into it with a pretty big result. Nice result for the Helix Highlanders. Maybe not unexpected as they rolled to the 42-17 win. I think maybe I expected Oaks Christian to come in and give a Helix a little bit more of a test, but a great performance by Helix this week. And boy, more record setting by El Elyon Noah. Tell us about this one.
Yeah, it was pretty incredible. I was over at El Cap out in Lakeside for that game, which we'll talk about. But just, browsing Twitter while I'm at the game, and it's like, wow, Helix scored, score. And it's just like, holy smokes. I don't recall what the halftime score was, but, seeing what Elyon Noah, he rushed for 276 yards and 4 touchdowns, including runs of 58 and 80 yards. I figured the Lions of Oaks Christian would have, put up a bigger fight, but Helix, you know what? I think they came in and they did their thing, and they were on a mission. And that mission was to put away all doubters, to complete what you and I called the triple gauntlet of that first week that they defeated Cathedral Catholic, followed by Saints, and then now completing the mission, just obliterating Oaks Christian.
Yeah, they really did. Helix got off to a real fast start. You mentioned Noah's runs. He had the 58-yarder on the first play of the game. Helix recovered an OC fumble late in the first quarter, and that led to a 70-yard drive, culminating in a touchdown pass from, I'll call him red-hot quarterback Cameron Brown to receiver Tim Christopher. Keontae Scott had an interception later in the first half, and boy, just a real solid night for Helix. Delshawn Traylor also hooked up with Noah on a long pass. Noah now has, Adam, 5,765 career yards. Next on the list is Jamon McClendon. So only going up the charts for Helix, and they will be hosting El Capitan this week. That's the matchups we're trying to maybe change a little bit or try to, somehow work around this. But, Helix going to handle the business against El Capitan this week.
Yeah, that game just, last year, Helix won 41-7. Noah in that game had 319 yards and 5 touchdowns. So obviously, if he does that all in the first half like he did last year, he'll climb up higher on the charts. Like you said, next up on the list is Monte Vista's Jamon McClendon, who is now at UCLA. He's the king. He's the rushing king of East County with over 6,000 yards. And then obviously on the list is the gentleman, I can't recall his name now, played for Saints, St. Augustine a few years ago in that big game, if you recall, the 2010 championship game against Helix. And then obviously Imperial's Royce Freeman, who everybody knows at Oregon, with 7,601 yards. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens because, in these blowout, what I think will be a blowout, he probably won't play that second half. And that's going to, obviously, talking to him, he's not about the individual records. So, but, so his counterpart, he'll get the rest.
Yeah, so we'll see who's in there, but they certainly can, turn to some of their other weapons. I mentioned Brown, 11 of 14 last week for 124 yards. Man, he is completing a high percentage of his passes. I know they're not very far downfield. For example, he completed a 25-yard touchdown pass to Keontae Scott, as we mentioned. That was with 9 minutes to go in the game. So there's some other people that are going to get some work this week, and maybe the Highlanders will dip down even further and get players more experience. Just a great job, though. Helix, they got your number one vote this week, I take it.
Yes, they did. Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Sure. No reason to move them out.
No.
So great job by Helix. I mean, we're going to move on. We spent a few more minutes on this game because it was such a high-profile matchup, really, but maybe Oaks Christian down just a little bit. Their program won't be down for long. I don't think they're really down. They played an elite schedule, and Helix is just another tough opponent for them. Maybe they were expected to lose those games that they did lose to, at least 3 of them, I think. So no biggie there, but, Helix invited Oaks Christian in and got the job done. Okay, well, Adam, I took in a game this week. I was at Steel Canyon High School, and I saw the Cougars defeat Mira Mesa 45-0. Real good night for the Cougars in this one. I was particularly impressed once again by Steel Canyon quarterback Jeremy Mendez-Gall, who threw a touchdown pass and rushed for another. Steel Canyon had a real nice night offensively. I will say it was a tough break for Mira Mesa early. Their top player was knocked from the game on a great hit by T-Max Anumwa early in the first quarter, and he did not return. And that any chance Mira Mesa had of even making it competitive went out the window when that injury occurred. So a real good night for Steel Canyon, Adam.
Yeah, according to the stats that I saw, defensively, the Cougars held Mira Mesa to 94 yards. Cameron Ewert had a 19-yard pick six. Offensively, like you said, Jeremy Mendez-Gall, he threw for over 100 yards and a touchdown, and rushed for another. The Cougars on the ground piled up 449 yards. 449 total yards. If they can, keep doing that mixed in with, a little passing, I think they're going to be on the right track. They got the next, the tough competition next week against Granite Hills. But you know what? I think they capped off an excellent non-league schedule that was pretty tough. Highlighted by that huge win over Madison a couple weeks ago. Like you said, I was surprised at Mira Mesa, because usually in the last couple of years, the games have been somewhat close. But obviously, with what you said with Mira Mesa's top player getting knocked out, that kind of took away any shot they had of scoring any points. It looked like.
Well, Mendez-Gall had a 15-yard touchdown pass to senior Chance Johnson on the first series of the third quarter. That made it 31-0. I will mention also junior quarterback Ilya Kriasmasi had 2 touchdowns in the game, threw a 20-yard touchdown pass to Angel Almazan, and he also had a keeper. He passed for one and ran for the other. So real good game for Steel Canyon. Also mentioned David Martinez had a 28-yard field goal. Wesley Neely had an 8-yard touchdown run, and Chris Carter had a 51-yard run in the second quarter. Junior Colton Guerrero had a sack in the first half, and Luis Alvarado had a pass deflection. Don't want to short this defense right now. The questions you've had, Adam, have been with the offense, and Steel Canyon is kind of putting it together. I'm seeing more and more confidence each week from Mendez-Gall.
Yeah, having obviously not played at the quarterback at the varsity level, there was questions of who was going to be the quarterback this year. Like you said, you were impressed by Mendez-Gall. That first game when we saw him play Eastlake, you could see the potential of the next excellent quarterback at Steel Canyon, and he just needed the experience. And obviously, these last few weeks, especially in that game against Madison, that I think that really boosted the confidence. And he's not just a game manager. I think that Coach Longerbone is letting him, pass a little bit. They may not be throwing 25, 30, not 30, 40 times a game. But you don't really need to when you can run the ball like they have. But obviously now that you're getting into the tough league schedule now, you're going to have to obviously throw the ball a little more. And I think the Mendez-Gall is up to the challenge.
Now we'll talk about the game and I'll call it the big game in the conference in just a moment when we talk about Granite Hills, since Steel's playing Granite, and I kind of want to round these three teams up together, since both Steel Canyon and Granite and now Grossmont have all played Madison High School. And out of those three teams, Adam, only the Steel Canyon Cougars have come away with a victory over the Madison Warhawks. So I think that's an interesting note heading into league play. I don't want to, use the old cliche. This game right here was much closer than the score indicated. Madison tacked on a couple of late touchdowns as they pulled away. The Grossmont was kind of shooting their shot a little bit, trying to get back into the game late, after they were in the game for a while. But maybe you can tell us about this game. It was a real strong night, though, for Keontae Springs. There were some highlights from Grossmont, but a big win for Madison.
Yeah, it's a big win for Madison, obviously, because both teams fighting for that playoff position in Division I. Also, the rankings, like you said, Steel Cannon's now the only team in the Grossmont Hills League to beat Madison. Keontae Springs had his yardage. I believe it was almost 200 yards.
182. Yep.
Yeah.
182 and 19.
Yeah, and then a couple touchdowns scored. Listening to Troy Hirsch on the San Diego Prep Insider recap show, because that was their Goodwill high school football game of the week. Listening to him, it was pretty interesting to he's made a note that I believe it was when Springs was running, Grossmont had a really hard time tackling him. And, it from the way he was talking about it, and from also watching the highlights online, it looked like the Springs of old, that little shifty, hard to bring down hard to bring down running back. I think, this game, obviously Grossmont kind of shot themselves in the foot, I believe, with some penalties and obviously not executing the offense. So it's back to the drawing board for Grossmont, but I think they'll be okay.
Well, Grossmont did get, I believe, inside the 10 twice, maybe in the first quarter.
Yes.
Or early in the second anyway, and came in with no points each time. So, I think if you could throw in one touchdown or two and make it a competitive game, I see that, Madison has the 34 points, but it certainly could have been, a closer game, a game that maybe a little momentum for Grossmont might have helped them. They did limit Odom to 143 yards passing. He did rush 15 times for 118 yards, including an 11-yard score. But Odom was averaging over 300 yards a game, and he had of course, that big game of 440 yards against Madison in the playoffs last year. So
Yes.
Robert Tucker, 14 carries for 90 yards, and Brody Schicker, 5 catches for 35 yards. So still it was a good performance for Grossmont, but these are the ones that they're going to want to have moving forward, I would guess. I want to mention Cam Sanderlin had a blocked punt in the game, and Blake Keeling of Grossmont had an interception. So some other highlights for the Foothillers. Adam, this week they're going to take on Valhalla. We'll talk about Valhalla in a little bit, but maybe we should talk about Grossmont now, since maybe they're expected to win this game. They're going to be considered pretty strong favorites in the game. I'm going to give Valhalla a puncher's chance. What do you think this week? Opening league up for Grossmont.
I think if Grossmont, they'll bounce back. Keegan Baker, I believe, will get his numbers. Last year the score was 51-7 Grossmont, and they had some injuries last year. So with a full healthy squad this year, like we were talking about, I if they had to put a spread, it would be at least 28 to 35 points, in my opinion. If they did handicap the high school football games, just because, like I said, Grossmont's got the run, has a running back, which obviously Valhalla does. Grossmont's, outmanned, in my opinion, obviously. Valhalla at quarterback, wide receiver. I think Grossmont's defense is a little bit better. But, maybe Valhalla will, step up to the challenge, to say, hey, we're not the doormat, that everybody thinks we are. Will it happen? I don't think so, but they may they may make the game closer than I think.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I'll make my pitch for Valhalla when we touch on that game, their win against Kearney. I would think in just a moment. Just want to, for Valhalla, got to eliminate those turnovers. They fumbled 4 times in the game against Madison, and I'm sure they're kicking themselves in the foot. I talked to Jamie Odom after the game, and he was a little downtrodden. Kind of put the blame, put the responsibility on his own shoulders, and that's the type of guy he is. But
yes,
it sounds like Grossmont had some other problems in the game that prevented them from keeping in the game late. So I don't think Jamie has anything to worry about. Just get back on track against Valhalla. Like I said, I'll talk about them in a minute, and maybe their chances against Grossmont. I want to give them certainly a bit of a chance in that game, considering their improvement this year. Well, Adam, I couldn't go wrong in this game. I predicted that the Eagles would win, and sure enough, they did. Anyways, it was Granite Hills Eagles 41, Southwest Eagles 7. Not the same version of the Southwest Eagles as we've seen over the last few years. The 16th ranked Granite Hills, they were led 34-0 at halftime and cruised to the victory. But some scary moments in this game, Adam, that took everybody aback. They had to play the rest. They agreed to play the rest of the game on a running clock after what happened in the third quarter. Why don't you fill us in?
Well, I heard that, and then also reading in the note on the Union Tribune, that the coach's wife for Southwest El Centro, she had a seizure or something. Do you know the details, Moni?
Looks like that collapsed and maybe we had a seizure. She had previously had a seizure. That's what the UT's Jim Lindgren reported. Turned out she was released 10 hours later, so that's great. But really nice gesture of sportsmanship as all the team members and cheerleaders from both sides gathered on the field to pray. I don't know when that occurred, I imagine, but it took the ambulance reportedly 35 minutes to get there. Mm-hmm. I think one of the reasons we've gotten away from having the ambulance at the game is because of the great response time of our first responders. Remember, we used to require ambulances to be at every game, and I don't think that's the case anymore. But I think that might have been changed, maybe because with technology, the response time has become so greatly improved.
Well, that and also obviously the money talks, so yeah, it's expensive for that. But um, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't really know much about those details.
Yeah.
Other than money, and maybe it's a money thing. I don't know. But no, talking, yeah, it was really cool to hear that both squads cheerleaders and players got together and did a little prayer circle. um, so unfortunately, it's under such circumstances, but it's great to see two opposite teams come together and you know under such circumstances.
Well, for the Eagles, their league tune-up, I believe they might have a bye this week, but Granite Hills scored on a 66-yard connection from Justice McComb to junior wide receiver Matthew Keeley midway through the opening quarter for the game's first score. And just a minute into the second quarter, McComb had a 6-yard rushing touchdown on a drive that was extended when Granite Hills converted a 4th and 2. Adam, freshman Jalen Hall is a name that we're going to be talking about for the next several years. He had a 74-yard touchdown reception from Justice McComb also in the second quarter. He's a player that the Eagles actually considered to start the season with them, but maybe want to give him a little bit more seasoning. But apparently he is dynamic. I really didn't see anything yet. I didn't look at the huddle highlights or anything like that.
That catch was pretty spectacular.
Okay.
What I saw of the huddle highlight, excuse me, he went up and that ball was in between two defenders. It was probably one of the, I don't know if it was as great as that catch that was on the, everybody was saying that was one of the best catches online with the one hand. But man, Hall, I'll tell you that Hall, he made a hell of a catch. And yeah, he's a player we're going to be keeping our eyes on these next 4 years.
Running back Kevon Martin also scored a touchdown for Granite Hills, and also Granite Hills forced several turnovers. And Granite Hills, of course, doesn't have a bye. This is where I was going to talk about their chances against Steel Canyon. I mean, we already talked about it maybe from a Steel Canyon perspective, but these two teams have had some great games over the years and kind of went back and forth a little bit. And I think the wild card here is, even though Steel Canyon has that lofty ranking, and maybe Granite Hills, Adam, dare I say, are underrated maybe all season so far, and maybe going into this game, especially considering where Grossmont had been placed before they suffered this loss. They kind of passed up Granite considering where the teams were last year. So, Granite's going to have a big shot in this game. I mean, I don't want to say shot. It's going to be a great game. I just think the Cougars are maybe favored to win because of their high ranking, and I think even their power rating would still consider them a favorite on the road against Granite, but I don't know if it's by that much. And I think if you ask Steel Canyon, I think if you ask Coach Longerbone, and they're such good buddies, him and Kellen Cobbs, they might be looking as a toss-up. May the best man win.
Yeah, it's funny. It's interesting that Granite has won, the matchups in the regular season, and then when they've played in the playoffs, of course, that famous game 2 years ago in the semis, Steel Canyon has come out on top. The regular season game a couple years ago with Burton's I coined it the Miracle on Madison catch. Just as time expired, scoring the game-winning touchdown. Him being draped by multiple defenders to come down with that catch. And then, of course, last year, Granite winning. Excuse me. Granite winning in the last minute of that game. They scored on a last-minute touchdown by Chris Ostring after they trailed 27-22 with about 5 minutes to go. So yeah, it's like you said, it's a toss-up. It's not going to be a high-scoring affair, I don't think. I think it's going to come down to who, it's cliche, who makes the least amount of mistakes.
I think it's a real intriguing matchup. If you look at the Cal Prep's projection, it really, even after you factor in the home field, I think it really kind of still has Steele Canyon as, a pretty considerable favorite, maybe even more than a touchdown. But I don't think either team, of course, Granite Hills doesn't feel that way, and they know they have a chance. And I got to think that Steele Canyon thinks they're in for a real battle in this game.
If, like, again, going back to if they handicapped high school sport football, I would say, because this game's at Granite, right?
Yeah.
I
think
would
wild card in it all.
Say Granite probably by a field goal.
Yeah, I think that's the wild card in it all, Adam, and I think that's a great pick.
The other thing I think is, like you said, it's going to be the wild card. Like we were talking about the home field advantage. I think if people are going to show up to this game, so get there early. It's going to be standing room only. The Steele Canyon Cougar student section does a really fantastic job, but I think the Nest is what they go by. That student section for Granite Hills, the Nest. They'll have the music pumping, everybody cheering. I heard when they played their last home game, I saw a couple people post on social media that the Nest did a phenomenal job. This is one of those games, and I know what, I'll bet you the theme, if there was themes, it would probably be some sort of theme such as a blackout or something like that, something of that nature. So yeah, I think the home field advantage gives them a slight edge. But like I said, 2 years ago, it's going to come down to probably the last possession, as it has the last couple of games, especially including the playoff game, the epic playoff game, semis from a couple of years ago. Like I said, I think it'll probably be a 3-point spread if they handicap high school football.
Well, I'm glad you made a prediction because I'm not gonna. But
I just think that if Granite, they'll be favored by 3. I mean,
so you got them by 3. I don't know if they're favored by 3.
Kind of, they're favored by 3 just because of the home field advantage. You always have to.
You're rating it a toss-up, and you're throwing in the home field advantage, and that's why you are considering Granite Hills the favorite. I mean, I'm just telling you, the Cal Preps neutral site rating had it like 31-17. So.
Oh yeah, I understand that, but
I mean, that doesn't take in the intangibles, right?
But both you and I know, who've seen both teams up close and in person, and just from covering both teams all year long, it ain't going to be a 31-17 game. If it is, I'll be shocked. I'll be really shocked.
Well, like I said, Kevon Martin, he's back for Granite Hills and doing things for them. And, I think Granite Hills might have the more efficient passing game or the longer passing game, if you will, but maybe the backs ride with Steele Canyon. So you're calling for a low-scoring game. Both teams have good defenses. Sometimes they've had some high-scoring games, and the offenses really haven't been super productive. It's just been such an incredible game, a game of big plays, exciting games.
Right.
So there's no doubt that's where we're headed this week. Okay. Adam, this week you went to the Tony Burner Memorial Trophy game. Everybody wants to call it a cup, Adam. That's a football on top of the trophy. It's not a cup. I'm not sure if we can call it a cup. I'm calling it a trophy from here on out. The Mayor's Cup, or whoever's cup it is for the award between West Hills and Santana, that's a cup. It's a cup, shaped like a cup. This thing's a trophy, and it's going to go back to It went back down the 67, across the 52. It didn't go down Mass Boulevard. Okay, that's how we get from Lakeside to Santee now. When we go to West Santee, we got that nice Highway 52. We took that trophy. It was probably the best 9-minute bus ride of the season for West Hill.
Yeah, this game, it was crazy. It was back and forth. El Cap, excuse me, El Cap was, came back and pulled, was leading, and the final, what ended up being the game-winning drive for West Hills, what people don't realize is that El Cap actually should have thwarted that game-winning touchdown. I believe it was Hernandez. Is that the kid's name? Hernandez?
The quarterback?
Yes.
Yeah, Gerardo Hernandez.
Yeah, Gerardo Hernandez stepped back. El Cap got their rush in and actually sacked him, and he fumbled the ball. The El Cap defender, there wasn't anybody, between him and the end zone. He tried to do the old scoop and score deal, and it kind of it backfired by hot potatoing out of his hands, and there was a mad scrum for it. And in the end, West Hills recovered the fumble, and that breathed second life into them. And of course, Hernandez stepped back and threw an incredible pass, where Cole Klingerman could only catch it in that back of the end zone. He made a really phenomenal catch, kind of like this. Yeah, and toe tap basically got the foot down, and it was really phenomenal. I was standing right there, and I was like, wow, what a catch. And then of course, El Cap had a shot, and they drove down the field, and there was about a minute left to go in the game. Hauser, it was with probably maybe the 8 or the 9, possibly the 10-yard line, I think. Hauser stepped back, and there was, to be honest with you, it was such a in the moment deal that I haven't gone back to to see what happened on that, other than just to see where the interception occurred. But it either looked like the receiver broke wrong, or Hauser just threw it to the wrong place. But from what I heard, Stephen Christini kind of knew what was going to be coming next, and sure enough, Hauser stepped back and made the pivotal throw, and unfortunately, Christini caught it at the goal, inside the goal line, and there wasn't anybody between him and the house. And instead, he could have fallen on it and procured the victory. But he decided to, take it and run it out. And sure enough, once he did that, he was gone, 100 yards. For that pick 6, and obviously sealed the win for the Wolfpack. And just on a note, that was the second longest interception returned for a touchdown in San Diego CIF section history.
Well, it's funny because the game might actually end up being known for that play, just because you don't see that every day. 100-yard interception return, 101, whatever it was. But I don't know. I think the annals might actually say that when this game is talked about in the past, because I think this series right now, these will be the games that have been talked about is because of the trophy. And the 2019 game, I think, will belong to Cole Klingerman and his brother, Kip. Cole with that great catch that you mentioned, and also he threw a touchdown pass to his brother, which is just awesome, obviously.
Yeah, the crazy, that happened early on. El Cap scored to go up 7-0, and give credit to Coach Ash. They were facing a 4th down, and everybody thought they were going to punt. They ran a fake punt and got the first and moved down the field, and they ran looked like a reverse play or what was going to be a reverse, and what's his name stopped and threw to his brother and went in for the 6.
Yeah, and also want to mention I thought was an interesting in that game, but you mentioned that sack and fumble, and it wouldn't have been ironic that the man to do it for El Cap was the same man who had the big sack last year, Jacobo Villa. He's the man that forced that fumble, and it was like he was almost going to be kind of the unheralded star for the second year in a row, but they couldn't cover that fumble. West Hills earned that victory. They did what it took late, but El Cap was playing well enough to win. So hats off to El Cap with all due respect. It's just another loss right now in a game that really they needed to win. So a little bit heartbreaking for them. Wick Hauser had 170 yards of total offense, and the Wolfpack, though, limited El Cap to just 69 yards through the air. Hauser rushed for both El Capitan touchdowns in the game. Donnie Green had 118 yards on 16 carries for El Cap, and Savion Yokley, 3 catches for 27 yards. But Adam, West Hills is going to host El Cajon Valley for its home game next week. I saw the Braves. They were taking in the Grossmont Madison game. Saw a couple of the guys out there right after the game hanging out with the winners, I'll say. They were on the Madison sideline by the end of the game. We're walking over there to greet some of their friends. But, West Hills will be favored, but I'm looking forward to this one. I just want to see how West Hills does against their league foes. I think they'll play some good football. Let's just say that.
Okay. And yeah, I mean, last year's score was 47-13 West Hills.
Okay.
I don't think West Hills will take this game lightly because of the following game,
Yeah.
But I don't think that. Well, let me rephrase that. I don't think they'll be looking ahead, I should say. It can go. It's one of those deals. Is like, okay, obviously you can't look ahead and whatnot. Like I said, it was 47-13 last year, and yeah, I mean, they're coming off the big win against El Cap. As I don't foresee it as a letdown or a letdown trap type game. I think Coach Ash will have his guys ready to go, and they'll take care of business, I think, pretty easily against El Cajon Valley.
Adam, a team that took care of business this week, the Santana Sultans, the best team in Division 4 right now. I don't know. The Sultans say they're looking for respect, and I think they're getting plenty of respect. They beat Vincent Memorial 42-0. Vincent Memorial came in off that win over the Braves as the top team in Division 5. So in consecutive weeks, Santana defeated the number 2 team in their division, the number 1 team in the division below them. So the Sultans continue on a roll, and they're heading into the big game this week, maybe between the top 2 contenders. in the Grossmont Valley League. Not going to slight West Hills. I think that win last week breathed a lot of life into the Wolfpack and kind of puts them back, in contention with those other teams. But still, it's going to be a great game this week, Santana and Mount Miguel. But first, Santana took care of Vincent Memorial. Nathan Temple scorched Vincent for 218 yards and 4 touchdowns. They really kind of cruised to victory.
The second, this game was a little close for a while. Vincent Memorial had a chance to go, into the end zone just before half, and this is something that drives me nuts, and I don't understand why teams do this. You're at the 1 yard line and you run the pistol. That makes absolutely no sense. And for those who don't know what I'm talking about, instead of handing it off, right away, they, try to hand it off to somebody who was like 5 yards back, and they got stuffed. And it made no sense when I heard this. Oh, it drives me nuts to see teams that do this. Don't get me wrong. The pistol's an interesting, it's a workable offense, but not when you're 1 yard out from scoring. And to me, honestly, from talking to some people that I know that were at the game, if they score, I'm not saying Vincent Memorial wins that game, but it's a little bit different. Plus, I know their one player got hurt. I do know that. I heard that. They'll be the favorite in Division 5. Like you said, Nathan Temple threw for a couple hundred yards and multiple touchdowns. Randy Smith, what did he have? He had 4 catches for 50 yards and 2 touchdowns. He now has obviously 25 receptions for 469 yards and 13 touchdowns. What's that?
Every other reception's a touchdown for Randy.
Yeah, which by the way is 13 touchdowns, matches his total from last year. Have to mention a note on that. It's a record note, actually.
Okay.
With a touchdown reception in this, if he scores again against Mount Miguel, which I assume he will, he will break newly inducted Santana Athletic Hall of Famer John Fields' career record of touchdowns in touchdown receptions in a career. Both are currently tied at 27. Fields did his damage from 1997 to 1999. If you're not familiar with John Fields, he's one of the best wide receivers to ever play in East County. He was on that undefeated 1999 team with DJ Bush and Michael Bass, Chris Mozzie, the one that was coached by Coach Ralph, and that awesome staff that he had. So yeah, like I said, from what I gathered, his next touchdown reception will set a new school record for most touchdowns in a career.
Well, it was Randy Smith catching 2 touchdown passes from Temple this week, both in the first half. He caught a 9-yarder in the first quarter. He caught a 25-yarder from Temple in the second quarter. Nathan Hughes had a 46-yard touchdown reception. And Temple also ran for a touchdown, as did Brooks Mutah. And Dawood Sadler also had a touchdown run in the game in the third quarter. And also some nice defense from Santana, obviously, in that one as they get the shutout. Cameron Larikia, he had 6 tackles. And Kavlon Jones had a sack. Nick Brass jumped on a fumble recovery. Pretty good night for the Sultans, considering Vincent came in with their undefeated record. Also want to mention Nick Valentine had an interception that set up Utah's run.
Well, also Nick Valentine, it was the homecoming. He was the homecoming king.
Oh, awesome!
So that's an icing on the cake for Nick Valentine, pick 6 on the night you're declared you win homecoming king.
Yeah.
Going back to Randy Smith, I forgot to mention also, with his he has 13 total touchdowns this year. It's between him and another connection between him and John Fields. He needs 8 more touchdowns to tie John Fields's record for most touchdown receptions in a season with 21, so 9 to break. So we'll see. You were talking about the little respect deal. Santana saying, looking for some respect. I believe that's what you said, right?
Well, it just seems like they're saying we're not getting the respect we deserve. But I mean, I looked at those in-season computer rankings, which would have them 6th in the entire county. I love this Santana team. It's really been one of my favorite teams to watch over the last couple of years, considering how prolific they are and the personalities that they have. But they want to be included in the top 10. That's not how this thing works right now. They're a great team. They're really expected to win in Division 4. I don't want to say it's a disappointment if they didn't, because those other teams in there are very good. Santana's played, some of those teams at home. They've also went on the road, though, and beat some of them. They're expected to win. I mean, don't want to put any pressure on these guys. They don't mind the pressure. They want this championship. They want 2 championships. 2 championships, Adam, that really have escaped them over many years. So they're putting pressure on themselves, and so they deserve the respect that they're getting as far as being the favored team, right?
Oh yeah, for Division 4, it is what it is. They are the favorite in Division 4. It's their division to lose. But as far as the top 10, no, I'm sorry. And I'm an alumni of Santana, but you have to be honest about it. They haven't played anybody except Division 4 teams. And don't get me wrong, those teams are good, but to be ranked in the top 10 or get other receiving votes, you gotta play somebody. Now if they beat both Mount Miguel and then go on to beat West Hills, okay, maybe we're looking at some some potential there. Mount Miguel, they haven't beaten in over a decade. West Hills, last time they beat them was 2011. And that's been a lopsided series over the years. So, you have to earn the respect. Yeah, you're 6-0, but who have you played? And I know I'm going to get the hate stuff online. And I tried explaining this to a couple people, and one of them actually understood what I was talking about and appreciated the insight. And I said, look, I'm an alumni of Santana. I'm just telling you my honest opinion about it. It's not, you don't get a top 10 ranking or other votes just because you beat people, 50 to nothing, who, in all honesty, aren't very good.
But they're not good in the maybe, when you look at all the teams in the section and how we're placed. But I'll come to your aid right now as best I can. You certainly respect the opponents that Coach Estes and the program have chosen for their schedule, as far as taking on the best teams in relation to their division and their ranking and what their goals are to build a successful season. I mean, they've really taken on the best teams they possibly could, really, to a certain extent. So that's really why they're such strong favorites in Division 4, because they've kind of built up their power ranking to reflect. I'm talking about the general computer power ranking now, not necessarily
the
CIF ranking, which I think that kind of does include what I'm talking about. But they've taken on the best teams that they can, and they've beaten them. No, they're not out there playing, teams from Division 1 and Division 2, and that wasn't their goal. The goal is
even Division 3
to play comparable teams so that they're ready for league and they are ready for their chance at a section title. And they've got it this year. They've got it. They've got it. They can earn it. They're favored to get it. And, I think we can go from there.
Yeah, they excuse me. And that's what I explained, to the couple people. I said, look, they're playing the teams that they're supposed to be playing, and that's their divisional opponents. They're not. Yeah, they could have scheduled a couple opponents, like say Division 3, but playing Division 4, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying that. They do deserve the respect, because they are beating the Division 4 opponents. And like you said, they're beating, they are beating the Division 4 opponents, and that's what they're supposed to do. And as of right now, they are the huge favorites to win that division. And if they don't, in my honest opinion, it is a failure because they are the favorites.
Well,
I mean, it's been their first Moni. Their first league title was 30 years ago, 1989. Their second league title was 10 years later, 1999. It's been 20 years. And every time they've gotten to the Division 4 championship game, 2011, 2016, they've come up short. But now that they are the overwhelming favorites, we'll see how it goes.
Well, we won't spend too much more time on them, but we have to because it's such a big story. And
I just hope that we've talked about it enough to make people understand why they aren't getting votes in the top 10 or others.
Is that what they're saying? You think why aren't we in the top 10? We're 6-0.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I understand. Then maybe I didn't understand what they were, what their fans were being so defensive about, because I certainly think that they've gotten terrific coverage. I think we've been very, very fair. Your site with them. I mean, you always have great insight because of your history with the Sultans, and I just love this team so much that I thought I've played them up big time, and I've written them up big time. I wrote them up big time in the East County Californian this week because I think that they deserve all these accolades, and I don't want it to end with a disappointment. I refuse to use the word failure in that situation. Anything can happen in one championship game. But, Adam, is this week the championship game in the Grossmont Valley League, considering West Hills is, I don't want to say resurgence, but they've gotten things back together a little bit. West Hills is 3-2, but this week, Adam, it's at Mount Miguel. That's a huge, huge equalizer for the Matadors if you want to consider the Sultans the favorite. So, are you willing to go out on a limb right now with Santana and Mount Miguel, or you just think, first of all, tell me about what you think of the potential of the offenses in this week's game. Do you think 100 points is in the works? At least 80, right?
Oh, at least. And it was a shootout a couple years ago.
They're going to say they're going to run the ball. And maybe they want to. Maybe keeping the game under control is the secret in this game. I don't think that's the case for Mount Miguel. I think Santana thinks that maybe they can actually run the ball and try to control the game. I don't know if they need to kind of harness Nathan Temple a little bit, but I think they can.
Yeah, because last year, Mount Miguel won 46-14 at Santana. JD Laverdier in the game threw for 414 yards and 5 touchdowns. Wow. Jaheim Pompey Allen torched the Sultans for 233 yards receiving and on 11 catches and three touchdowns. Of course, for the Sultans, Nathan Temple didn't play as he had gotten hurt prior to that game against Sarah. As I see now, our buddy Raymond Brown chiming in, saying Santana's a great team, nowhere near top 10 right now. That's what I'm talking about. They are a great team, but nowhere near the top 10 right now, as our buddy and good friend Raymond Brown has chimed in. No,
I might
yeah.
vote him 10th. I might vote him 10th just to get him that 1 point, because I don't think any of the other 31 people, any of the other 30 experts are going – experts. We're calling us experts here, but I don't think any of the other 30 voters are. Maybe I put him at 10th just to get him 1 vote.
No, I think this week's game against Mount Miguel, as I stated in the pre-season podcast with Braden Sopranet for 97.3 FM The Fan, I stated that this game would be for the championship. And I understand, by the way, your background's green. I understand it's the first game of league, and I told him that before the season, I thought that Mount Miguel was the favorite. I was going back and forth between them and Santana. I said that Mount Miguel was the favorite. I actually picked Mount Miguel. To be honest, I picked Mount Miguel just because of Laverdiere and Pompey Allen. I mean, that's a fantastic duo. Seeing the way things are, like I said, I think this game's going to be a 42-35 type score. It could be a 42-35 type score, Moni. I think Santana's going to want to balance the offense and keep Laverdiere and Pompey Allen off the field. And I think that they'll let Temple sling it a little bit. I think. I mean, how can you not? He's got Randy Smith, Nathan Hughes, and the other weapons. How can you not? So yeah.
And I'll give credit to a little bit what you're saying, because now you're kind of pumping those Matadors up, and they deserve to be pumped up as they come into this game as the home team. I will mention to you, before I go too much into this victory by Mount Miguel last week, that the Cal Preps ratings definitely have Santana by at least 2. I think it was I'm looking at it right now, 40-20. So you throw some home field in there, and you're still looking at 14, 17-point games. So Santana really is expected to win. I think Mount Miguel is going to give them a lot tougher game than that. Adam, last week, Mount Miguel, they got a free home game on this one, and they would have won on the road either. But Sweetwater's field is all messed up. Their turf got screwed up this season. They have to play all their home games at Hilltop High School, but the Lancers were at home this week. So Mount Miguel hosted the Sweetwater Red Devils, and when we were young, Sweetwater was the team to beat. But right now, not so much. Anyway, nice performance by Mount Miguel. They really did it with a strong performance from the defensive line. They really pressured the Red Devils. They forced a fumble. They recovered it on the opening possession. Who was it? Of course, it was Laverdiere to Alan Pompey. Just a 50-yard touchdown. In the second quarter, Laverdiere. Adam, I teased JD a little bit. I said he's got those Tom Brady rushing statistics. He only gets like a couple yards, but he's got all these touchdowns. He has like 7 touchdowns in the past 2 games. So,
he's got more than that.
Oh, yeah.
Now, are you talking about for rushing, or are you talking about combined?
For rushing.
Okay. Gotcha.
Rushing only. That's not speaking of his passing touchdowns. So, Mount Miguel basically was scoring on every possession. He connected again. It was funny. It was actually 14-all at halftime. So I don't want to belittle that. Yeah, I don't want to belittle the performance. The problem that I have right now with Mount Miguel, and seeing it even in the games they win and the games they lose, are slow starts. And I don't know why it takes them a while to get untracked. Maybe we'll start to push them on it if we interview them again before this week. But once they got it going, they ended up crushing them. But Laverdiere and Alan Pompey had another connection in the second half that made it 21-14. They eventually pulled away.
you're going back to what you just said about the slow starts. Look at that game a couple weeks ago when they played Santa Fe Christian. They went down 28-0, I think it was, and they ended up losing. They ended up making a Fast and Furious try to make the Fast and the Furious comeback in the second half, and I think the score was like, what was it, 35-28 or whatever it was. So like you, I'm kind of I'm miffed also. It's such a strange deal. Like you said, it was four. I when I saw it was 14-14. I'm like, really? Wow, that kind of shocked me. It really did. And then of course, Laverdiere and Pompey Allen, they just boat raced them in the second half. Pompey Allen had 200 yards receiving. Excuse me.
Wow, wow.
Seven catches for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Jeez, he gets 200 yards almost every game. That's like unheard of.
Yeah, he had 200 yards of Laverdiere's 272 yards. Laverdiere was 15 of 26 for 272 and 3 touchdowns. Plus, he rushed for the 50 yards and 3 touchdowns.
50 yards.
That's what. Wow. That's what the note said. I mean,
nice.
And he's accounted for 13 touchdowns in the past 2 games. Awesome. So that's one. Going back, going to the game this week against Santana. That's one of the things that Santana is going to have to try and box. They're going to have to contend with is the fact that Laverdiere's not just a pocket passer. He can run the ball, and that's a threat. And teams in the past that have given the Sultans fits are these teams with the running quarterbacks who are athletic, speed at the wide receiver. Like I said last year, Pompey Allen torched the Sultans. But I do go back to last year. There was a play just before half that happened, and I don't recall all the 100% of the details, but Mount Miguel, I think scored, or they stopped the Sultans, and that was kind of the pivotal play in the first half, and the momentum from that carried them. So, and like I said, now with Nathan Temple back and healthy, 100% this year, they have all their weapons, and if they can get the run game going, maybe they can control that clock and keep that Mount Miguel offense on the sideline. But I'll tell you what, it's going to be a chess match. You want to know why, Moni?
Yeah.
So I haven't talked to anybody. I'm just going to give you my perspective. Pat Kelly, the defensive coordinator for Santana, phenomenal job. He's done a phenomenal job this year. It's going to be, you know how they talk about in the NFL whenever the ex-Belichick guys play Belichick and the Patriots, they say it's a chess match between so-and-so and Bill Belichick. I think it's going to be a chess match between Pat Kelly and Troy Starr. I really do.
Well, I don't know if you made a prediction or made a call on that. It sounded like you thought maybe that home field could help Mount Miguel a little bit. And I also mentioned, you mentioned Jaheim Allen Pompey, and maybe that is a very exclusive connection. We already know how prolific they are, but he's going to have to use those other weapons. I think Santana has enough to maybe get some help on Jaheim. So I think Laverdiere will have to look to his other guys. Jojo Castillo had a touchdown reception last week, and also Kojo Miller had 6 receptions. So get those other guys involved. That's going to help Mount Miguel a lot. Big concerns, obviously, about the Matador running game. like to see a little bit more from them, especially in such a big matchup. Here's my shout out to Axel Aguilar, who was 6 for 6 on his point after tries in the win over the Red Devils. Good job, Axel. All right, we spent a lot of time on those two games. We'll be lamenting what happened next week. And like I said, neither Adam or I are discounting the West Hills Wolfpack. All respect to Monte Vista and El Cajon and everything. We'll see what they have in store for us. Hopefully they can pull off a little upset, a little shocker along the way. And maybe they'll mess things up for one of these teams that are up there right now. And that can make a whole season and help teams get into the playoffs and things like that. So getting ready for the Valley League. All right. Now we want to just get back real quick to this result because it was a good game, actually. On homecoming for Valhalla, 20-12. I think they were under the big top this time around for homecoming. And Valhalla does a very, very nice job and defeats Kearney. They led it most of the way, led throughout, and Valhalla ends up getting the victory 20-12. They led in the game 20-6. Then Kearney did get a late touchdown, but just a great job, particularly by the defense of Valhalla. Senior Ethan Furkich had 13 tackles, and Dominic Yancey had 7 assists on defense. They also had a couple of sacks, including one by senior Laith Adnan, who recorded a sack in that one. And Ryan Giovanni Alejo, the sophomore, he had an interception and several pass breakups for the Norsemen in this one, stopping Mario Alves and the Kearney Comets. A real nice job. Valhalla 3-2, and hey, this is a win they needed, Adam.
Yeah, it is because I believe because Kearney's in Division 3, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. So it's a huge win for Valhalla. They keep up with West Hills, obviously because West Hills beat El Cap, and because as you and I were talking, all these teams were kind of neck and neck with each other.
And we were going off the max preps because CIF hadn't released those ratings yet.
Yes.
So I will say when the ratings did get released, Valhalla was much higher. I think they were in like 8th. So but they still had to win. Kearney was below them, and Valhalla was at home. So they did the job. Valhalla pushing their way up. I don't think it's out of the question that they could get a home game or more.
No, it's definitely not. They're going to have to somehow. I think if they can, sneak up on one of these teams, whether it be maybe a Grossmont, a Granite, or a Steel, maybe, I don't know.
I think find another win somehow.
Yes,
that could put you in the top 4.
Yes. Keegan Baker had his usual numbers. He ran 33 times for 236 yards and 2 touchdowns. He now has 1,031 yards and 13 touchdowns in 5 games. They're going to have to, now that they're in league, they're going to have to throw the ball a little more, I think. Don't get me wrong, Keegan Baker, he's a beast, but you're going to be playing, you're playing the Granites, the Steel Canyons, the Helixes. They're going to put 8 men in the box. You're going to have to throw the ball a little bit, and show that there's another threat, or else Valhalla it's going to be key to the one-man team basically.
Yeah, Luke Pillsbury, he's only a junior. He did have a 42-yard touchdown pass in the second quarter. Like you said, it was kind of close early. I think Kearney actually led. They actually, now that I remember, that game was on Orange Nation TV, so I went back and watched it. Kearney actually scored first in the game, and then Valhalla came back to get the lead 7-6, and Keegan Baker had a 10-yard rushing score. 3 minutes to go in the second quarter, and that made it 13-6. Valhalla also recovered a fumble in the game, so they did a nice job. Baker added a 2-yard rushing touchdown in the third quarter with about 3 minutes to go. And Kearney had a chance late. They did score and went for an onside kick, but that's kind of where it ended. So nice job, Valhalla. They were playing a pretty decent opponent considering their record was 2-2. So a nice job there. You mentioned getting one of these wins. Look, if there's a spot for them to try to get an upset, Grossmont's coming in this week. Grossmont still is going to be a pretty big favorite, but Valhalla, this is still a nice situation for them, and maybe Grossmont could be. I don't know. They played well in that game, so like I said, Valhalla is expected to win. Adam, Grossmont needs to. Valhalla needs to find a spot, and maybe this would be the spot, but. They play Granite's always a rivalry. Somehow, some way, they're going to have to maybe find a way to get an upset. They're big underdogs this week, though.
Oh, big underdogs. 28. If, like I said, back to if they put spreads on high school games, it would, based upon the score from last year. Grossmont wasn't healthy last year, mind you. That score last year was 51-7, and mind you, Grossmont I believe, was short players out of that game. I could be wrong. But, with Grossmont completely healthy, obviously they want to bounce back from the loss to Madison last week. It's start of league play. Coach Carlo wants to get his troops on the right side of the win column there. If they handicapped, it would be a 28-35 point spread. I think that Grossmont is going to bounce back. Odom's going to have a hell of a game, I think. I think Keegan Baker will get his numbers, but I just don't think it'll be enough.
Okay, well, that'll probably wrap up the show. I'll just mention we talked about them last week, and unfortunately they didn't play. Foothills Christian won by forfeit over Julian, 2-0. They're 6-0. They're the top-ranked team by far after those CIF power rankings came out. You and I were trying to research a little bit. There's a few other competitive teams in 8-man, including one in their league and one in the Citrus League. They'll probably come down to 3 of those 4 teams. I think the other Citrus League team will get in there. So San Dieguito Academy, San Pasqual Academy is the other team to beat for Foothills Christian in their league. This week they're going to take on Calvary Christian. Calvary's 0-4. So, Foothills, I'm not hearing much from them right now, and I don't have much to report on them from last week. They have a pretty easy matchup this week, Adam.
Yeah, I said, I don't know much about them either, other than that they're 6-0 and that they're the favorites, one of the favorites, if not the favorite, to win that 8-man CIF championship again for the 3rd straight year. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're the 2-time defending 8-man football champions for CIF. It's funny. It's kind of cool. I actually learned something new over the weekend on Saturday night. At the Santana Athletic Hall of Fame dinner, one of our inductees, Ryan Hallahan, who, if you're not familiar with that name, he played for Coach Doug Coffin and the Santana Sultans back in the early '90s with the great Leon Bender. Hallahan was probably one of the best players to come out of East County to play in the East County. Why I brought his name up, talking to him, he brought it up in his induction speech. He's actually an assistant coach at Foothills Christian, which is pretty cool. I just found that to be interesting. There's no real insight, to that. It's just a cool little tidbit. Again, I think, Foothills, it sounds like they'll win their game against Calvary Christian this week, and, they'll move on to bigger and better things.
Adam, let you go, but maybe you could tell us about the night you had. What a great class at the Santana Hall of Fame. How about some of these names, huh? Margot Bass, Shea Bass, of course, Taylor Kelly, Hayden Penn, also a guy who pitched in the minor leagues, pitched some incredible games in the minor leagues, actually, and Hallahan and John Fields. How'd you enjoy that?
Oh, it was great. We had, it was a good crowd. It was great. Hayden Penn, he pitched 5 years in the majors, pitched in Yankee Stadium. When he made his debut against the Detroit Tigers, he was at the time the youngest pitcher in the majors at 20 years old, I believe for that year or whatever. Ryan Hallahan, who had just spoke, he was teammates with Leon Bender, was part of that phenomenal defense for the Sultans that had like five shutouts that season, their season in like 92 or 93, maybe it was 94. But John Fields, he's one of the best receivers to ever play out here in the East County. He was part of that high flying offense of Jerry Ralph for the Sultans, with DJ Bush as the quarterback, Mike Bass as his counterpart, Chris Mozzie, the only undefeated team ever for the Santana Sultans in the regular season at 10-0. The second team, the second league title 20 years ago, ironically. Taylor Kelly, full ride softball scholarship to Cal. It's funny, an interesting story. Her last ever at collegiate at bat was a base hit to beat Stanford, their arch rival. So that was interesting. And then of course Margot and Shea Bass both played. They played 1 year together for the legendary Wade Vickery at Santana. Multiple league titles, a CIF championship, just a pretty good class for Santana for this year, for the sixth edition of the Santana Athletics Hall of Fame on Saturday night.
Yeah, that 92 Santana, Hallahan and Bender, yes. And another guy on that team lived upstairs from me. I made a joke a couple weeks ago. I lived in the condos behind Round Table.
Okay.
And in fact, Arnold Santoyo
yes.
In the condo above me. So shout out Arnold and Josh.
That's rad.
If you ever get a chance to see this.
I went to school with Josh, actually. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I think I want to say I've seen him on Facebook a little bit. So, all right, brother, I'll let you go. It's getting late. One person watched. Shout out to our one viewer at this hour. Probably if it's Raymond or whoever else, but everyone else will see this, and then you'll start to get the you'll start get the DMs tomorrow, probably in the evening. Call me if you need support.
Hey, you and I, we gave our honest opinion about it. Did we disrespect anybody? No, but we just put it in a different perspective. And I think the people that I talked to, they understood what I was talking about. And like I said, it's been a great season so far for the Sultans. But as Raymond Brown said, they're a great team, but they're not a top 10 team yet. Will they be? Beat the teams on the schedule coming up, and we'll talk about it.
Well, hey, I think you have a right, and I think you are more critical of any Santana results, and just as I have been of Helix in the past. I mean, when they, lost that game, I said, "This team, what are we going to do? We're Helix. What are we going to be? 1-4? What are we going to be? 1-4 after this?" Well, right. They went out and proved us wrong. So that's what we like. That's what we like. We want to try to, put it in perspective, and then when it happens, then pump them up like they deserve. So, okay, brother, great job. That's it. This is it. We've already, we're crossing over. September's over. We're in October.
Where are we going, man? It's crazy.
So halfway through league, now we're in league play. We might have less to talk about, but more important things to talk about in the weeks to come.
I think we're going to have a lot of great things to discuss next week for our show, Moni, and it's going to be a blast.
Oh, yeah. These games are going to be something interesting. And I'll be out this week at Grossmont and Valhalla. Looking forward to seeing all of my friends out there at Valhalla. They'll be broadcasting that game live on Orange Nation TV right here on YouTube. So make sure you check that out with Ron Owens and Coach Hutch and Nate Polite. Nate Polite did a great job this week.
Yeah, that I went back and watched a little of that replay. That's pretty cool that they do that. I think it's awesome that that they offer offer that service. I think every school, with the technology now, just like what you and I are doing right now,
yeah.
It's amazing how far the technology's come. Games. I'm gonna, speaking of games, I'm gonna probably be out at that Granite Steel Canyon game. I think so. We'll see.
Yeah, and I think an interesting story out there. You have a young Burton playing for Granite Hills, so I think that could be a nice little sidebar.
Yeah,
that maybe you can look into, and talking about some of these live streams. I want everyone to stay tuned on East County Sports. Adam Paul from EC Preps, always thank you for joining me. But I want to say stay tuned for all of our East County Sports Network viewers, because we got some things in the works. You're all going to be real happy and surprised. Might take some time, but we got some things working out, and I'll clue you in on it, Adam, and everybody else in the weeks to come. Maybe the months. I don't know. I'm pretty busy and all, but all right, brother. We'll see you next week.
All right, sounds good.
For Adam Paul, I'm Ramon Scott. Thank you for joining us.